Hello, Internet. Once again, it's time to try to get a little bit of laughter into your life. So, without very much further ado, I present to you the second volume of my series of amusing historical anecdotes. Yeah, enjoy. Braxton Bragg, American 19th century Army officer and Confederate States General during the Civil War, was when he was a young lieutenant stationed in a fort out in the West, at which he did double duty as both company commander and as the fort quartermaster. As the company commander, he asked the quartermaster of the fort for some material for his men, and as quartermaster he then decided to reject that request. As company commander, he then restated his request with further argument, and as quartermaster he once again rejected it. This happened a few more times until, at an impasse, he went to the fort commander and put the situation before him, at which point the commander said, "My God, Mr. Bragg, you quarreled with every officer in the army, and now you're quarreling with yourself. Stop it!" It is perhaps not surprising that during the Civil War, Braxton Bragg was famous for being a terrible general who fought with every single officer he worked with. Bernard Le Bovier de Fontenelle was a French writer from the 17th and 18th century. He lived to be 100 and maintained vitality right up until his final years. At the age of more than 92, he visited a young lady of his acquaintance, and she, welcoming him in her morning gown, said, "You see, Monsieur Fontenelle, how I honor you by getting out of bed to greet you." "Yes," Fontenelle said, "but it's that you get into bed for someone else that offends me terribly." John Drayton was a fairly famous English poet back in the 17th century, and after having a new play performed, a young lord came up to the poet and didn't exactly hide that he disliked the show. "Stuff and nonsense," the young lord said. "I see that the young loving pair in your play sits alone on a bench in a park and spend their time talking. Pah! I know better than your hero what you do in those kinds of situations." "Yes, I would imagine," Drayton said politely, "but then again, you are a lord, not a hero." Emil Kui, a French psychologist and doctor, always liked to, amongst other ways to treat people, to perform self-suggestion. It was basically a chance for the patient to think positive. He should say to himself always, "I feel better today. I feel better today." That would help him then improve. He also liked to have his nurses say something like that, because the patient should always say, "No, he hasn't gotten worse. He thinks he's gotten worse." Which, of course, led to the situation that one day a nurse came into his office and reported, "Patient number 107 in room 11 thinks he's dead." The great German composer Johannes Brahms once had a young man look him up in his home and ask him to look at some piano pieces that the young man had composed. Brahms looked through the score, then looked at the young man and asked, "What is your profession actually?" "Well, sir," he replied, "I'm a jeweler." "Really?" Brahms said. "Then why are you composing?" The young man smiled a bit, looked embarrassed and said, "Well, that is just my weakness." "Yes," Brahms said, giving him back the sheets. "I can see that." Nicolas Boyer Despreaux was a French poem and art critic in the court of the Sun King, Louis XIV. Now, Louis had a fairly high opinion of himself as a poet, and Boyer, of course, didn't want to lose his beautiful position at the court. So one day when the king gave him one of his poems and asked Despreaux to criticize it, the critic exclaimed, "Ah, nothing is impossible for your majesty. Your majesty have wanted to write a really bad poem, and you have succeeded." The English novelist Samuel Butler once said about a famous celebrity marriage of his day, "It was really kind of the good Lord in heaven to let Mr. and Mrs. Carlyle get married. That way, only 2 and not 4 people became unhappy. The very famous Italian composer Gioacchino Rossini was friends with the German composer Mendelssohn. Mendelssohn had died, and a young man came up to Rossini with a requiem over the deceased. Rossini listened patiently to the young man's composition, and afterward he criticized him like this: "Oh yes, my dear, that is fairly good. It had been better, I suppose, if it had been the other way around. You had died, and Mendelssohn had compared the requiem." The American oil millionaire John D. Rockefeller at one time checked into the Willard Hotel in Washington, D.C. and requested the cheapest room without a bath. The man at the desk looked at him in shock and said, "But Mr. Rockefeller, when your son stays here, he usually always asks for the most presidential suite we have." "Yes," Rockefeller said, "my son has a rich father. I'm not that lucky." During the age of the silent film, the very famous Charlie Chaplin was once asked how he, who after all spent all his time making movies, would also go to the cinema so very often. He replied, "You don't understand. The cinema is about the only place left where you can still experience that wonder of wonders, more rare in real life every day. And I exclaim in joy in every fashion when I in a movie see a woman opening her mouth and no sound comes out." And that was it. Short and sweet. I hope you all laughed a bit. I at least find them amusing. If you wish to see more of this particular kind of videos, let me know about it. So, until then, I have been the Sage, and I wish you all a Happy New Year's. Bye.